Day 536. There is a lot of new from the Velyka Novosilka direction. Here, after Ukrainians' forces established total control over Staromayorsky, the next logical step became taking Urozhaine. Last time I told you that Ukrainians somewhat decreased the intensity of ground attacks in this region, as they noticed how Russians were pumping the salient with reserves. Ukrainians understood that this was a perfect opportunity to cheaply destroy Russian forces with indirect fire. Geolocated footage from the region shows that Ukrainians were tracking Russian reinforcements and then targeting forces concentrations. Recently, Ukrainian reconnaissance finally confirmed that Russians drained their reserves significantly, which is why Ukrainians started gradually increasing the intensity of ground operations once again. At first, Ukrainian Marines from the 35th and 36th Brigades launched a series of probing attacks from the north and northeast. The operation was very successful, and by midnight Ukrainian forces already gained a foothold in the northern part of the village. As could be seen from satellite footage, the northern part of the village actually consists of several strong points, as Russians dug several trench networks in advance. Soon, Ukrainians tried to capitalize on their recent gains and started attacking other strong points nearby. Russian sources reported that Ukrainians rolled out their tanks and provided fire support from a distance. Geolocated footage confirms that Ukrainian tanks hunted down Russian reinforcements and prevented Russians from moving through the village freely. As a result, Russian forces did not receive the necessary help on time and had to retreat. Because Russians only had trenches in the northern part of the village, once the defense line was breached, further movement of Ukrainian forces came much easier. Nonetheless, Ukrainians were not in a hurry to move further and preferred to stay inside the trenches in anticipation of heavy artillery fire, which was inevitably conducted. Instead, Ukrainians assumed a defensive stance in the northern part of the village while other marine units were preparing a surprise attack. Suddenly, Ukrainians opened two more lines of attack, from the east and also from the west. As it turned out, Ukrainians hid pontoon bridges in the tree lines and, at night, created a passage over the river. Russian forces in the southern part of the village got almost encircled, which is why they rapidly abandoned their positions and fled. At first, Russian sources claimed that the settlement was still not lost, and that Russian forces were preparing to make a counterattack in the northern part of the village. Later geolocated footage showed that Russians actually lost the settlement and tried to gain a foothold in a desperate counterattack, but their assault units were quickly annihilated with cluster munitions. Russian analysts immediately started blaming the commanders for the collapse of the defense line. In general, the analysts blamed the whole Russian 37th Brigade for the failure to organize a coherent defense. It was revealed that the commanders failed to instill strict discipline and complained about the lack of troops, while in reality, half of the troops in the rear were constantly drunk. Moreover, the cooperation between the troops was horrible, and Russian tank units frequently refused to provide fire support to the infantry on the zero line. That is why Russians lost the tactical heights around Staromayorsky and Urozhaine, and wasted hundreds of troops in the meat grinder in the lowlands until it was physically impossible to continue doing so. Ukrainians are already capitalizing on the Russian retreat from this village, and have even established control over several strong points south of the village. The front line will continue collapsing, and the battle for Zavitne Bazhania has effectively already started.